Hello there, and welcome into another edition of the JMac Podcast, where today we're going to answer a very important question. Is COVID-19 the same as the flu? The reason I'm asking this question is because while I was out on the campaign trail, and even today, I continue to hear from people who say, we don't need to wear masks, we don't need to social distance, this is no different than the flu, and we don't quarantine and social distance and wear masks for the flu. We just need to let this take its course, we'll get herd immunity for it, and then everything will be just peachy and personal rights are protected. So the question is, should we be treating COVID-19 exactly as the flu? That's what we're going to deal with in this podcast. Now, before we do that, I want to remind you that I need your support to keep these podcasts coming. I would love to be able to make this a full-time situation where I can bring you fearless honesty about the issues that we all face every single day. You can help me out by liking, sharing, commenting about this podcast, and you can also help us out by becoming a patron in the Podbean app. Just click on the Become a Patron. Donate $1 a month, $2 a month, whatever you feel this podcast is worth. That will help us out tremendously. All right, now let's get to this issue. Is COVID-19 the same as the flu? Should we be treating this exactly like we treat the flu? Let people go get vaccinations, no quarantines, no social distancing, no wearing a mask. Look, I wish that it was like that. I wish that we could come out and say, it's no different whatsoever. But my friends, the answer is, we just don't know yet. And not everybody, but people who tell me we need to treat this like the flu, they act like we know everything there is to know about COVID-19. They act like all the research is in, and we know exactly how this affects people. We know exactly how to deal with it. We know exactly how long somebody's going to have it. We know that it's never going to come back. We know how the antibodies work. And what I would suggest to you is that is so far away from the truth. And that one of the reasons why we should be treating COVID-19 very, very carefully, and we should not be treating it like the flu, is because of the unknown. Now, we know about influenza. We know about the flu. It's been around for a very long time. We know how it affects people. We have a vaccine. That vaccine has to be adjusted every single year because the flu does change. And so we need to watch it. And we ask people to get vaccinated. And of course, there are anti-vaxxers out there who don't want to get vaccinated. And that's a discussion for a different time. But there's not a lot of mystery surrounding influenza and how it will affect us. There is a tremendous amount of mystery when it comes to COVID-19. And to illustrate this, I just want to share with you a couple of stories that I saw over the last few days that really make me wonder if we have any clue how COVID-19 is ultimately going to affect us. 2 different studies released. Now, again, everybody's studying COVID-19. They're coming up with varying results. And at one point, we may hear one thing, and then 2 days later, we may hear a study where we hear something else. Like there's big debate and discussion right now about how COVID-19 travels through the air. Is it an airborne concern, or does it mostly travel from surface to surface? And so, again, we just don't know. But here's one study that really stood out to me. Scientists warned of a potential wave of coronavirus-related brain damage, as new evidence suggests that COVID-19 can lead to severe neurological complications, including inflammation, psychosis, and delirium. Now, I was watching a news station yesterday. I don't remember which news station it was, but there was somebody on who had recovered from COVID-19. And he was talking about how he still has all of these really strange side effects. It's been weeks since he has recovered, but every once in a while this nasty cough comes back out of nowhere. But he said, all of the sudden, I'm incredibly clumsy. I drop things. I go to reach for something and I miss completely. He says, I don't know how to describe it, but my coordination is gone. And he's like, I don't know if this is from COVID-19. I don't know what it is. And he says, when I go to my doctors, the only answer that I ever get is, we just don't know. And he's like, well, do you think it's going to last? Do you think that I'm going to get my coordination back? And they tell him, we just don't know. And my friends, that is the scariest thing about COVID-19. We just don't know. I'll read you some more from this study. The study described 43 cases of patients with COVID-19 who suffered either temporary brain dysfunction, strokes, nerve damage, or other serious brain effects. This is one researcher who said, my worry is that we have millions of people with COVID-19 now, and if in a year's time we have 10 million recovered people, and those people have cognitive deficits, then that's going to affect their ability to work and their ability to go about activities of daily living. My friends, we just don't know. So to be pretending and acting as though we do know, or that this is exactly like the flu and should be treated by society as the flu, we just don't know. You think about it. We are only months into having this disease around. We are only months into research. And you want to just say that we should just allow people to get it? We should just go out and run society the same way because they're going to get it. Most people will recover and most people will be fine. We just don't know that yet. Now, here is another study, and this is a question about herd immunity. A new study shows that antibodies can disappear in 2 to 3 months. Now, this is another thing that I hear. People will get it, they'll get the COVID-19, they'll get the corona, and then they'll be immune. And so we get enough people who are immune and will have herd immunity. Well, again, we just don't know. The study further found that immunity is shorter for asymptomatic patients than symptomatic ones. The less symptomatic a person is, the weaker the immune response and antibody strength. This is a researcher from the University of Utah who said young people who have mild disease or asymptomatic disease, their antibodies may never rise very high. He said, we don't even know if those antibodies are protective. So again, we don't know. And that's, I think, the most prevalent thing that I hear about COVID-19. We just don't know. Is COVID-19 the same as the flu? We just don't know. So wouldn't it be wise to do everything in our power to protect ourselves and everybody else from a disease that is brand new on the scene? That there is no way we can know what the long-term impacts are going to be on our health, on our brains, on each other. This thing could, we may find out months from now that this thing comes roaring back, or that people die sooner who have had it. There could be all kinds of things that COVID-19 is responsible for. So I would suggest, and it's my belief, that while this research is being done, that we take every precaution possible. and stop acting like we know, because we don't. And for those of you who think COVID-19 is just this big conspiracy, look, people are dying in huge numbers. I know one person in the medical field whose responsibility it is to recover the bodies from hospitals and other locations. And they're talking about seeing the numbers of bodies from COVID-19 go up and up and up every single week. You're talking about hospitals in Miami and Florida who have no more space for COVID-19 victims. This is real. We need to take it seriously. Those people who are downplaying it as though they know exactly what this is, there is nothing out there to suggest that we know much. And if we don't know much, then we ought to be very, very careful, because this thing could develop into something very different, and we may all regret not wearing a mask or not taking it as seriously as we could. So please, please consider these thoughts as you decide how you're going to behave as a citizen in a society that is facing a pandemic. And remember to please let me know. Share your thoughts with me in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to this podcast, and become a patron if you can.